Now, if you're in the market for a new caravan or a new motorhome, then one of the decisions that you're going to have to make is whether or not to buy your van, off the plan, or to maybe use a custom builder. Like, if you go for a custom builder, one of the benefits is that the manufacturer is going to, work with you every step of the way to make sure that every box is ticked and more. The other benefit, if you find a really good custom builder, they're going to have a suite of ideas that they'll be able to bring to bear, many of which the customer might not have already thought of themselves. Now, Regal has been in the business of custom building caravans and motorhomes for decades, and look, it just so happened that they wanted to show us 4 of their most recent builds. We have 2 caravans and 2 motorhomes, and with Regal being a custom builder, I thought, what a great opportunity to step inside and see some of these interesting touches that a custom builder like Regal can apply to your next build. In fact, we'll start with this Regal RSV, and if we step inside, there are a couple of things that I think you might like and you might want to think about for your next van. Now, the first thing I'm going to point out, look, it's not a huge thing by any means, but it's this sort of stuck-on chopping board. You see it from time to time in a caravan, but I do think it's a good little idea. However, in this particular caravan, they've even fitted a vacuum cleaner. And look, you might have seen a caravan with a vacuum cleaner before. They are a bit few and far between. You don't see it too often. But basically, you sweep the floor as normal, but instead of using a dustpan and brush, you just put it all up against this unit here, and it'll suck up all your dirt and your hair and whatever. Look, not only is this bathroom massive, and that is one of the benefits of going for a 20-foot, plus caravan, but I'm also interested to know what you think about this. This is obviously the wall-mounted washing machine, circular instead of that square shape that we might be used to, but it's recessed into the cabinetry, puts it out of the way, looks a bit different. You've got a bit of bench space to work with still, but I also like the vast amount of cabinetry in this bathroom. Again, the benefits of going for a bigger caravan often means you get a bigger bathroom. Here we have the slide out. It's a great looking unit. Often with these sorts of slide outs, there's the issue of what to do with the table. Sometimes you'll see a slide out with a fixed table. I think Regal does tend to provide more of a portable table solution, which means that you can put the table wherever you like, whether inside the caravan, or you can take it outside and have your dinner outside. Trouble is, these tables are quite heavy, they're bulky, so where do you put them? This is a rather neat idea. They've got this little bit of a sort of a void here between the fridge and this lounge seat. So they've provided this sort of custom-made holder, like a little ply pocket, I guess, for the table. And it's all neatly finished, and it's a tight fit too, which means that table won't rattle around. And then when you want to use the table, you just got to lift it up. So the table itself wouldn't be made by Regal, that's something they've sourced. And the other good thing with this setup, right, is that it means that you don't always have to have a table in your way. It creates all this sort of extra living space. So we can just pop the table back into that pocket over there. So it's just a really good idea, because why do you need to have a permanently mounted tabletop? That's even lined with carpet. What a good idea. That means the finish of the tabletop isn't going to be scratched. This caravan is typical Regal build quality, which is to say it's done well. There's loads of features. There's wireless phone charging points. I like the angled kitchen. It's got a nice flat floor with no wheel arch intrusion, so they can really maximize the floor space of this caravan. Now, inside this Regal RSV, we do have a pretty impressive 12-volt system. We have 3 200 amp hour Enerdrive lithium batteries. We have a 2600 watt pure sine wave inverter. We have a 60 amp mains charger. We have a 40 amp DC to DC charger that also doubles as a solar regulator. We have a separate MPPT 40 amp solar charger as well. Now, on the roof, there are 6 solar panels at 200 watts each, giving this van a total of 1200 watts worth of solar. So you're really never gonna run out of power with this caravan. Now, here's another little custom touch on this Regal RSV. Now, it's a fairly conventional caravan locker, but Regal's also fitted it with this King slide out drawer fridge. But beyond that, rather than just leave this empty dead space up here, they've customized a shelf. Now, it's an engineered chassis specifically for the Regal, but we have the name of the caravan and the manufacturer etched into the steel. And behind that, we have some LED backlighting. Now, here we have a very special Regal Sahara that really epitomizes the benefits of choosing a custom builder. Now, this caravan forms part of Regal's accessibility range. And what I mean by that is, well, access to the Caravan, and it all starts here with this AMF Bruns lift from Germany. Now, these lifts are designed specifically for vehicles, and Regal has had to engineer the chassis very specifically to accommodate the lift, but it's got to be the best and easiest way for, you know, somebody with any mobility issues to get inside their Caravan. And let's face it, why should anybody with mobility issues be precluded from enjoying the caravanning lifestyle? Once the person's on the lift, it's really just a case of pushing a button and up you go. Now, by the way, this lift is rated to 300 kilos. Now, obviously, somebody who's in a wheelchair or has some other mobility issues in their life, they're going to need some space inside their Caravan. It's no good having something really narrow and awkward and difficult to negotiate. So what's Regal done? They've created a Caravan with a perfectly flat floor, and that, coupled with their slide out, gives you so much space here towards the front of the Caravan. Now, speaking of the front of the Caravan, we have a bed in the nose of the Caravan, but it runs east to west rather than north to south. And when you think about it, for a Caravan that's supposed to be, you know, wheelchair accessible, that makes perfect sense, because if it was north to south, well, not only would that take up more space inside the Caravan, you wouldn't have any room down the side of the van to suit a wheelchair. Now, this particular Caravan was specifically customised for a Regal customer. The customer asked for the bench tops to be built to a certain height. And again, that makes sense, because if they're in a wheelchair, how would they reach the bench if it was at standard bench top height? Obviously, if you're in a wheelchair or you have some other mobility issues, you know, having this flat floor entry into this special shower space is really important. As you can see, they've included a little bench. There's a number of handrails. There's also a handrail over here for the toilet. And this must be one of the first Caravans that I've seen that has dual shower heads. We have one here on the back wall and one on this leading wall as well. So you can start to see why they call it the accessibility range. They've really put a lot of thought into the issues that somebody with any mobility problems might face when they're out on the road. And the idea here is to make their lives as comfortable and convenient as possible. And one last thing, they've fitted these exhaust fans in the bathroom that operate on a remote control. It's just a matter of turning it on, and we can change the mode of the fans, or we can even just flick it to rain sensing as well. Now, this van really does make use of every spare millimetre. A little pull-out chopping board or bench extension. Inside this brilliant wheelchair accessible Caravan, you'll find other features such as a washing machine, Sirocco 2 fans throughout, an instantaneous hot water service, and more. End of the day, any van intended for wheelchair access is probably going to be highly customised to suit the owner's needs, and this one is no different. That black sink and tapware, they look pretty great too. Now, not all custom builders are going to be able to build a Caravan as well as a motorhome, but look, with Regal, they do motorhomes as well, and we do have a couple of examples here. We have a C-Class Regal Dual over there, and here we have a Sprinter-based conversion. It's the Regal GT. That door's quiet as well. Your Caravan park neighbours would be happy with that. This van has that new car smell. It's great. So here we have the wraparound lounge at the back, and they've provided this infill, of course, but effectively, that's a club lounge. And it's comfortable as well. Now, Regal does offer a couple of layout options. I believe you can have just a couple of normal lounges either side and have this open for easy access out the back door. It always amazes me just how much they can fit inside a very limited space. There's some lateral thinking that goes on. Excellent use of space inside this van. You've got overhead lockers everywhere, some decent wardrobe and clothes storage. You've got a small fridge and even a combi bathroom. Obviously, a lot of van conversions out there will have all of that, but in this particular Caravan, it's done really nicely. This feels like a really solid rig. There's not a great deal here that screams custom, but this wraparound lounge for such a small space, what a great idea. Now, I know what you're thinking, where's the bed? Well, I'm sitting on it. That's exactly why they provide that infill cushion. And last but certainly not least, we have this Regal Dual C-Class motorhome, and there's a lot to like about it. Let's step in. Now, C-Class motorhomes like this one are, usually characterised by the Luton Peak, which is the sort of the space that goes above the driver's cab. Ordinarily, you would find that they're fitted a double bed into the Luton Peak. That is far and away the most popular layout. However, what Regal's done here, being a custom builder, they've filled out the space above with cabinetry instead. If you're not going to be travelling with more than just the two of you, to me, that makes excellent sense. And let's not forget, often when you've got the bed here, that really does sort of hinder or restrict access to and from the cab. Something else that I quite like about this van is the head height that you have inside as you step in. They've been able to achieve all this extra head height using some aluminium framing for the roof to give it the shape, and that's clad with fiberglass that's been insulated, and the result is heaps of headroom big tall cupboards, big EnerDrive 2000 watt inverter. Now heaps of storage space under the bed, although a vent here for the heater has been sectioned off with ply, so that's a nice, neat presentation as well. If you're going to be buying a new caravan or a motorhome that doesn't finish components off properly, I just wouldn't buy it. You know, you're spending tens of thousands of dollars. The amount of times I've looked at a new caravan and knowing what the caravan costs, only to find that something hasn't been finished off properly, or they haven't put a bit of extra thought into providing proper protection for a particular component, just drives me nuts. At least in this van and the other Regals, you know, I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing thought, I'm seeing attention to detail, and that's just a good thing. Now in Australia, anything with a GVM of 4.5 tonne or less can be driven on a standard car licence. That is the case with this dual. Above 4.5 tonne GVM, you're looking at a light rigid licence or a heavy rigid licence. But it really is amazing how much living space, how much features and everything can be fitted into a rig like this and still be driven completely legally on your standard car licence. That is one thing that I particularly like about motorhomes. And it really isn't lacking anything. You've got your diesel heating, massive slide out, NCE microwave, you got fans and USB charging points where you want them. But again, this generous head height in the entryway, that storage space in the Luton Peak, I really quite like them. So if you're new to this whole caravan industry business and you're thinking of buying a new caravan or a motorhome, just remember you don't necessarily have to be stuck with what they're selling off the plan. Yes, there are a number of manufacturers who only offer, you know, set layouts and set builds, and they do serve a purpose. But don't forget, there are manufacturers out there, manufacturers like Regal, who can really work hand in glove with the customer to ensure that, you know, they are getting absolutely everything that they want. After all, if you're building a new house, I guarantee you're going to be working with the builder to make sure absolutely every little thing is exactly how you want it and tweaking the design here and there to better suit you and your family and your needs. So why not do that with your caravan as well? And as I've shown you with these Regals, there's lots of cool, interesting and different ideas that you can come up with. It's just a case of finding a builder who'll help you realise that dream.